Don't read Hebrew, you can say it in English. I'm not saying I'm just very loving. Young Khalil Tari Sadef Hashem Elohim Yankiv. Isha has a Hammer Kaidish and Tzian Sadeka. Isker Komi Kosecha Verosi Machna Salam. Iten Achachim Vamecha Vahala Tzatzacha Yamali. The Ran Misho Asah over Hashem Elohim Nidgil. Yamali Adonai Kom Shali Secha. Ata Yadaiti Ki Hishavla Mishia Yadahu Mishmikach Divoris Mishmin. Yesha Yamine. Either Rehavil Susimela Hashem Elohim Nanska Him Karvan Afalabia Nakam. You say that. Adonai Hashem Elohim Karenu. Allison, what I'm curious to know, what are the circumstances that led you to decide to come here?
I formerly lived in Boston.
Mhm.
I have a full-time job and I work, but
What do you do?
I work at Amazon. I'm a software engineer.
You do computer work at Amazon?
Yes.
Wow.
For the if you know those smart speakers, like the Alexa devices, that is what I work on. So I had a week. So I'm here this week, and I'm actually going to Israel next week.
How were you involved with Chabad in Boston?
Yeah, the Harvard Chabad, where the Zarfi family is, your great nephew, or no, it's Rabbi, the other Rabbi, it's Rabbi Majestic's great nephew. Sorry, but I don't know if you know the Zarfi family. They are based in Boston. At the Harvard Chabad, which is usually where I go, and they told me about this place because they're from Crown Heights, and I've never been to Crown Heights before, so.
Don't wait so long till the next time.
I know, I won't. I'm already thinking when the next time I can come.
So is there such a thing as Chabad of Amazon?
Not really, but they do have some group chats where they do some Devar Torah and stuff like that. Just as close as it gets.
Yeah, a lot of people probably work there.
Yeah.
Good morning, Rabbits and Simcha. Just making coffee.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning, Rabbi Pape.
I'm still curious to know how you found your way through the doors of Chabad in Boston.
I live in Boston.
You started me in the middle.
Hmm?
You started telling me about the middle of your journey.
Okay, so I decided I want to convert to Judaism maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And
What made you do that?
I could talk about this forever. I don't know how much time we have. It's a long story. But in college, most of my friends were Jewish. I just kind of got exposed to things like.
Were they observant?
Some of them were, yes. Not fully observant, but somewhat. And some of them grew up modern Orthodox, and some of them grew up Reform, which is kind of like a mix. And I just kind of learned about Judaism through the holidays at first, and we go into Shabbat dinners, and then it was just something that was interesting to me. And then when they would explain the story behind things like Pesach and just the meaning behind the holidays, I feel like everything made so much sense to me. It really resonated with me, and it felt kind of like the first time where everything just made a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's an internal logic to everything.
Right.
Everything fits together.
Exactly. So
even the things that are beyond our understanding fit together.
Yeah, it still does.
Everything has a place.
Yeah.
It's not just random rituals.
Totally.
And then when you see that, I guess, and you think, well, maybe I could have a place in there too.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
That's pretty much what happens. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. 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 Okay. So we're just coming up to page 200 in the Tanya. And where the author is explaining this unique thing about the Beinoni, that he leads a very righteous life, but inside there's a war raging in his heart because he's constantly being tempted to stray from the straight and narrow. And the difference between him and a Rasha is the Rasha does stray. He crosses the line, crosses the red line into the areas of the forbidden. And the difference between the Beinoni and the Tzaddik is that the Tzaddik doesn't have that war raging in his heart. He's won the war. It's finished with it. He has a different purpose. A higher one, perhaps a more difficult one, but definitely on a different level altogether from the Beinoni. So here he's saying, just to summarize from on page 198, that even if we see a person who looks outwardly from the way he behaves, the way he thinks, and speaks, that he's really very extremely righteous, and says the Alter Rebbe comes along and says, no, not necessarily. We can only see the exterior. We can only see how he behaves, the garments of his soul. But the soul itself is hidden. Only God knows what's really in the person's heart. Now, therefore, the level of the tzaddik and the Beinoni, the levels are really infinite, because the perfect tzaddik is 100%. That's so difficult. The very few people get there, as much as they may want to, as much as they're motivated to. It's not an easy thing, and it's not something that anybody can control. It's not something we can say, well, if I stand in line long enough, I'm going to get it. It doesn't work that way. So you have another few days, and that's it. You're going back after Shabbos. Back, oh, well, we'll miss you. We're just getting to know you. And then you're going to Israel for how long?
For a week.
Another week. Okay.
I'm actually going next.
Where will you be in Israel?
I'm going to Yerushalayim and going to Tel Aviv.
Are you going to tour?
No.
You're going to a seminary?
No, it's just like a trip with a bunch of people in Boston.
Okay, Hashem should watch over all of you. All of our people. So it says at the bottom of page 198, the godly soul, which finds its place in the mind of the person, in the intellect, rules over the small city, which means it rules over the organs of our body. It rules over how we behave, how we speak and think, and make the organs of the body serve as garments for the soul. The three garments are thought, speech, and deed. But the essence of the divine soul has no rulership over the essence and the substance of the animal soul in the Beinoni, except at certain times. Which times? When he davens, when a person davens. And even then, there's nothing guaranteed. A person can prepare for davening at great length and be very serious about it. And then when it comes to daven, he or she can just fall flat. Somebody once complained to the Rebbe that that when they learned a mimer before davening, they were very inspired. When they came to daven, there was nothing left. So the Rebbe answered and said, what the Rebbe said, he said, what can I do if you daven before you daven? As if to say that when you were learning and you were inspired, that was your davening. Then you had to still daven, you had to go through the motions, you had to, when you give tzedakah, you have to take the coin and give it to the poor person. So when you want to daven, it's not enough to have the kavanah for davening before you daven, which is what he was really saying, but you still have to say the words. When he said the words, he just wasn't up to it. That's another take. Another view of what we can understand about the Rebbe, that his thought, speech, and deed is really 100%. But he's very quiet about it. Okay, so when the godly soul gains an advantage over the animal soul, it's only insofar as it can control the garments of the person's life. Like we said, that the prophecy to Rivka, that's Rivka, prophecy was that there's 2 nations in your womb, and one will rule over to the other. One is up, the other will be down. It'll switch. When the Jewish people are behaving righteously, they will be in the ascendant, and if not, then the other side will rise up over them. Page 201. So, when the godly soul gains strength over the animal soul during prayer 3 times a day, meditating on the greatness of Hashem, that's why we look up, right? And therefore, this gives birth to an intense and flaming love of God on the right side of the heart. Va'az is kafya sitra achra. At that point, the sitra achra, the other side, the root of the animal soul, the source of the animal soul, is subdued. B'chol ha'smoli, on the left side of the heart. But in the Beinani, the sitra achra is never annihilated, destroyed. It just sort of goes into hiding. It seeks shelter. Ela b'tzadik, that only happens in the case of a tzaddik, like it says, "V'li b'cholo b'kirbi." Where we have that in chapter 1, page 2 of chapter 1 of Tanya, quotes David HaMelech, saying, "My heart is empty within me." It's a hollow. The word hollow means empty and it means slain. So the Yetzer Hara, which resides in the left side of the heart, is slain. It's not a player anymore. So therefore, bottom of page 201, the tzaddik despises and loathes anything against Hashem with a total hatred. If he is a complete tzaddik gomor, or without quite such a total hatred, but with an almost total hatred. So that little bit between almost and having a total hatred of the Yetzer Hara, that is what makes him an incomplete tzaddik. That small percentage of evil that remains unrefined in his heart, so he's a tzaddik, he's a righteous person. The evil doesn't cause him to do anything bad, but he didn't convert it to be good yet. Mostly, yes, but a little bit remains. So he's a tzaddik she'ena gomor, a tzaddik who is not complete. Aval, but in the Beinani, page 202 in the Beinani. For example, Ka'adam Shiyashain, like in the Beinani, the Yetzer Hara goes to sleep, so to speak, and leaves the person alone. He's not going to fight with him the whole night. He'll come to him, and that's why a person has bad dreams.
Rabbi Pape,
Yes.
are you okay?
Am I what?
Okay.
Am I okay? I'm okay. I'm just lacking sleep.
Aww. Would you like some coffee?
So sometimes my mind, the page, it just keeps on going. Okay, page 202 at the top. In the Beinani, the evil goes to sleep. Speaking of sleep, I was just meditating on that concept. And a person can wake up from sleep, so the Yetzer Hara can also wake up again. Kach hara b'Beinani hu kiyoshein b'cholol hasmoli. He goes to sleep in the left side of the heart, but it's not active. It's not doing anything. B'shas kriyas shema. When is that? When the divine soul is dominant and the person is like when he's saying Shema, or when he's davening. His heart is aflame with love of God. You know, when I was working on the university, and there were times when I'd have to be working till very, very late at night and getting up very early in the morning, and then and it was a very cold winter, and I had to fight through the cold to get to the building where we taught the classes, where classes were taught. And it happened on certain occasions. I'd be standing in front of a class teaching, and I'd suddenly see like rows of students. Not just 7 or 8 students, but 3 or 4 rows of 7 or 8 students. I wonder if they noticed. I'm sure they did. Okay. Bashaz, okay, bottom of page 202. So after a person prays, we discussed all this so many times. We can just, it's all very familiar. Page 203. And that's why Rabbah considered himself Mahazik Atzmei Kabeni, can say on himself on the first page of Tanya, on the first page of the Tanya, chapter 1, Kagoin Ana Beinani. He says there that a tzaddik is ruled over by his Yetzer Tov, a Rasha is ruled over by his Yetzer Hara, and the Beinani, both judges are active in his consciousness. And it comes along Rabbah, who's the same, we should understand Rabbah the same as the Rebbe himself. He's the outstanding tzaddik of the generation. And he says, yeah, like me, I'm a Beinani. And Abaya, his colleague, says, Rebbe, you can't say that. If you're a Beinani, we're all dead. Can't say that. But this is the explanations. Finally, after 12 chapters, we're getting the explanation that he could consider himself a Beinani, even though he never stopped studying Torah for a single second. And therefore, the Yetzer Hara could never get his foot in the door, so to speak. And his whole desire, his whole desire was just to be learning Torah, Yomam v'Layla, by day and by night. Like we learned in chapter 3, with a strong desire and a yearning and a longing to be connected to Hashem through uttering words of Torah. When you say words of Torah, Hashem is sitting opposite you saying the same words. He's learning together with you. When you learn a Maimar Chazal, when you learn a teaching that was transmitted by some sage, and he's not in this world anymore, it says his lips move together with you in the grave, in his grave. So why doesn't he get up? Why doesn't he get up? He's not allowed. Until the time of the resurrection, he's not allowed. And the story is recorded in the Talmud of somebody who was, excuse me, he was by the grave site of called a tziyun, of a saintly person, and he was learning things that this person taught, and the person was speaking to him. He said, if you can speak to me, why don't you get up? He says, I'm not allowed. But from this, we understand a story like these stories are teachings. They're not just stories. That people who have passed are very much here with us. They can be very active players in our lives. Now, at the bottom of page 203, for Rabbah, it was possible to think of himself like a Beinani, Hamispalel Kol Hayom, who was on the level of a person davening saying Kriya Shema. When a person says Kriya Shema or davens, he's connected. He's connected up on high. And Rabbah was holding on that level the whole time. But he could imagine that if he would stop learning, his Yetzer Hara would come back. But in the meantime, he didn't. He was on that level, and the Yetzer Hara had no say whatsoever. Couldn't get a word in, like they say. I don't know if they said it in America. Where I grew up, you used to say you couldn't get a word in edgewise. You ever heard that expression? Could not get a word in edgewise. I don't know, like you couldn't squeeze in even a peep. Or as the sages say, now you might say, object, is a person allowed to do that? Is a person allowed to daven a whole day long? Don't you have to do other things in your life? And the Gemara asks that question. See, the Gemara of Pascha says, ideally, a person should learn an hour before he davens. So you get in the mood. That's what our class is for, to prepare for davening. And then you daven for an hour. And then you have to bring it down. What you experience in your davening, now you have to bring it down so that it can be part of your daily activity in life. That's Shachris. And then the same 3 hours for Mincha, and the same 3 hours for Ma'ariv. It's a whole day. So the Gemara asks the question, is a person allowed to daven a whole day? What's going to be with taking care of the world? We're here to take care of the world. And the Gemara answers, bottom line, page 203. Yeah. Hashem would be very happy if a person davened the whole day long. I don't know if the Rebbe would be very happy with us doing that. He wants us. There's a lot of work that has to be done. There are so many Jews need to be contacted and need to be reached and need to be brought under the wings of the Shekhinah. And this is the mission that's been laid upon us. We have been charged with this mission. And this applies to everyone we meet, wherever we go. You could be standing in line at the checkout, and if the person ahead of you is Jewish, you say something that send a message through your conversation to let them know that you're Jewish and you're interested to know if they're Jewish. You don't even ask the question, but they take the hint and they go for it like a fish goes to bait. Or you could say something to them that would start a discussion about ethics and morality and the 7 mitzvahs, and that's what we have to be doing. But beware, don't become a preacher. There's a write-up about a shliach in Detroit. With his wife's encouragement, he established a Chabad house without starting any institutions. What did he do? He just invited people to come over to the house and taught them in the house, spoke to them about what they were doing the whole time. And she said, just let them ask you to do it. Let people ask you to do it. When people start to say, Rebbe, why don't we have a shul, a place where we can all go to daven? He said, oh, is that what you want to do? Okay, you ready? Are you ready for it? And everything that they took that whole approach, don't push your ideas on others. Let them pull the ideas out of you. Then it's theirs. Then they take ownership on the Chabad and on the institution. Now you're going to ask a question and say, yeah, but is it really true? This idea that I love Hashem so much when I say daven, when I say Kriya Shema, when I daven, is that really considered? Does Hashem consider that a real love? Isn't truth something that doesn't stop? Isn't truth truth is always truth? On every level is always truth. That's why truth is connected with the Torah. And the number 9 is connected with Torah because 9 is the perfect number. You've heard of this? It's a mathematical principle, casting out the 9s. Take any number, multiply by 9. 9 times 3 is 27, right? 2 and 7 is 9. Any number. Nine times 9 is 81. 8 and 1 is 9. Truth is always truth. In the Mishkan, this is represented, the Mishkan was made of standing up boards. Very unusual way to build something. Usually you build things one on top of the other like that. The Mishkan was built like this. How was it? Why didn't it fall over? Well, there were 2 reasons. One was, well, there were 3. They had boards on the outside held in place on a board, beams on high and beams on a low level, holding the boards in place. There were caps holding one board to the one next to it. There were little feet which were in sockets made of silver. The whole thing on outside and inside was coated with gold. Where'd they get the gold? From the sea. When the Egyptians all drowned in the sea, the Jews collected the gold. But in the middle of each board, so if you had a board like this, in the middle of the board, right through the middle of it, there was a hole, and there was a beam that ran from one end of the wall to the other. The wall was 30 amas long. That's like 60 feet long. What's 60 feet? It's like 20 yards on the football field. 60 feet long. And you had this middle bolt. So it says the middle bolt goes from the beginning to the end. And that's a symbol of truth, because truth is the middle bolt, the middle point goes from beginning to end. Now, not everybody's on the same level. So the way to understand this is like this. A fully accomplished person can be on a very high level when he davens, and when he doesn't daven, he's not on such a high level. When he davens, he's hitting the truest point in his consciousness. And after he davens, he goes to a lower level. So that's not the same thing anymore. Truth has to be constant, and this isn't constant. That's a problem. So the answer to this problem is that every level has its middle point. So that if you have things piled up one against the other, so the point of truth will go through the middle point of each level where it is. And therefore, the middle point of whatever level he's on and whatever stage he's up to, he or she is up to in their davening or their mitzvahs, that will connect with every other middle point on even much higher levels or even much lower levels. So that when you meet somebody, that's what you want. You want that the point of truth in you will awaken the point of truth in them. And that's why people come to the Rebbe, like for Sunday on $1, for Sunday dollars, or even watching a video, and they feel like the Rebbe is talking to them. Because the Rebbe's middle point, the Rebbe goes directly to the middle point of the level of the person in front of him. And that's the amazing phenomenon that people came to the Rebbe and they were just totally overwhelmed because nobody ever had communicated with them on such a deep level within them. So that's one way that we can understand here that even though the Beinoni during prayer is on a very high level, and after prayer or davening, after prayer, he's not on that level anymore, but we don't say that that's a lack, that's a false love. It's not false, because when you did it, it was true. And you can go back again. You can get there again tomorrow when next time you daven. And there's an inner truth to what you're doing, even if you're not concentrating as well as when you're in the middle of Kriya Shema, but when you daven, there's an inner truth to what you're doing, and even when you're not davening, we strive that what we do should be with the same inner truth, and the inner truth of my daily activities will connect with the inner truth of my davening. Does that make sense to you? So that's what he said. The love attained by the Beinoni, page 204, at the time of prayer, by the preponderance, that is to say, the dominion of the divine soul over the animal soul. Here's the question. When compared to the standard of the tzaddik who serves God in perfect truth, so you can't say that this ordinary person, the Beinoni, is serving Hashem with a true service, because it's going to disappear. After he davens, the Yetzer Hara is going to come back. And it says that the tongue of truth, the lip of truth, the person, when truth is only just is lip service, it's temporary. So it's temporary, it's not really, really true. However, page 205, the Beinoni, on his level as a Beinoni, the love that he experiences is regarded as a truly perfect service for the level that he is on. Each person according to that level. There are thousands of levels. The Madregas HaBeinoni, in the Beinoni level, there's thousands of levels. Bahareni koira bi'ahavasam shabbatfilosan, and the Alter Rebbe says, and this level that they do achieve in their davening is also called lip service, but lip service not in a bad way, but the service of truth on the level of their lips. Svas emes tikein load, and the pasuk says that the truth is always truth, and even the most external level of truth, which we would call the lip service of truth, is also truth. On any level, truth is truth. Because next time, when it's time to daven Shachris or Mincha or Ma'ariv, he has the power of the godly soul, lachazor, to return, ula'orer, and to reawaken. Bechinas ahava zu le'elam, this love that he felt during davening can come back to him at Shat Mincha. His gabrusa b'shasa tefillah, and it will be dominant the next time he davens, midday yem b'yem, day after day after day after day. He stays on that level. Al yedei hachana, if he will take the time and trouble to look up and to learn Tanya and to prepare before davening, and not just roll out of bed and into talis and tefillin. I heard a lecture once from a great scholar who was a professor, I think, of physics at the University of McGill in Montreal. And he said he became frum and he was davening, and he said these words. He said, I would wake up in talis and tefillin, and he'd be like asleep. You ever see anybody sleep while he's teaching? I'm so embarrassed.
It happens. I've seen it before. Don't worry. Happens to us when we're learning.
Hoyo. Okay, so the main thing here is that that if we will do the proper preparation, then we can come back to that level, which is an achievement, a true achievement, and it's not false. And don't run yourself down, and don't think that you're a phony piece of baloney. You're not. That what you achieve in truth when you daven and when you do mitzvahs is real and true and important, and can bring redemption and salvation to oneself and to the whole world. Have a great Shabbos, everybody. There we go. See you next week.
No,
Okay, drop us a line.